Hey there, 918ers, it's Geekboy, and I'm here with Goldar, the gamer with the golden throat, and the magnificent Mr. Narwhal, and we are here to give our thoughts, such as they may be, on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which was just released this past Friday. So we're recording this on Monday, February the 20th, now that we've all had a chance to see it. And I'm going to dive into this right here. I'm going to get Goldar's thoughts first, and because we've all had varying opinions on the results of Marvel Phase 4. And I think this portends that Phase 5 may be a little better, although we'll just kind of see. Goldar, what were your immediate thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania?
I thought it was okay. It wasn't it wasn't top tier Marvel, but it certainly wasn't as bad as a lot of the reviews are saying that it is. I think it's just kind of I think it's interesting that the reviews were so much worse than Thor: Love and Thunder, or even actually matching Eternals, which is interesting because I didn't notice that there were anything that were too offensive or too many big plot holes during this film. Now there are a few legitimate grievances during the film, and I don't want to touch on those too much without spoiling it.
Right. It's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to.
It is really hard to. But I can say a few things that this is the first Ant-Man film where Ant-Man truly has kind of an arc where like he's different from the beginning than he is at the end of the film. This is the first film that really I kind of observed most of the other characters don't really have an arc. They've largely completed theirs in the last two films, so they're kind of served to be here as supporting cast. And I will say that I'm hoping that we get more backstory from Kang. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
Especially on this particular version, when we see him next, because we will see him next.
Oh yes,
based on what they show us in the film.
Mr. Narwhal, what's your initial takeaway from?
Yeah, my initial thoughts about this was that I really enjoyed it. Personally, I think the whole review bombing that we're seeing on this film, people over the last few Marvel films, they've been smelling blood in the water. And
that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah,
and I think that they are just really sort of trying to sort of cut the legs off of the whole MCU thing at this point. Also, I've noticed that a lot of the people who are giving this film bad reviews, they're doing so trying to compare it to other films that are not your typical superhero type of stuff, basically saying that it's popcorn entertainment, which of course it is. It's a freaking MCU film. It's not meant to be high art. It's not meant to be super super fancy. It's a freaking Marvel movie. You get what you expect out of this, and I got exactly what I wanted out of it, which was a great film. It was fun. Yeah, it has tons of plot holes and little problems and stuff that that I thought was kind of odd decisions on the filmmaker's part, but by and large, I walked out of it and I had a really good time.
Yeah, I kind of say that's kind of my take on it too. I get it's a solid 3-star Marvel movie. I mean, I kind of like what Goldar said. It's not top tier Marvel, but it's not like Incredible Hulk or Thor: Love and Thunder or Captain Marvel or anything like that. Yeah. It's definitely not the train wreck that people think that Thor: Love and Thunder is. Although it does have a couple of moments, especially in the most of my problems with the movie. I mean, there are a few things I really hate. This whole, well, it's kind of like Goldar said, it's kind of hard to say without giving plot holes away. But let's just say that the first act of the film, Scott Lang's daughter's attitude, and if I were her father, she and I would not get along very well. Let's just put it that way. Her attitude toward him, and of course some of the things that she does. But that aside, most of my problems in the movie come with the third act. There's this really weird plot contrivance, that is set up before they go into the quantum realm, and then it pays off way later down the road, but it doesn't quite make sense. And I mean, it's very contrived. And there are a few of the moments where there are some jokes that undercut the drama. Not terrible, not like every 5 minutes, like what people complain about Love and Thunder, but there is some of the Marvelism there that they seem to have kind of latched onto since Guardians of the Galaxy and won't let go of. And honestly, the stakes for this movie, it could have done without it, I thought. Jonathan Majors is great as Kang, but like Goldar, he's very good with what he's given. But again, we don't seem to have a lot. We don't really quite understand his motivations and what he's all about. And I honestly blame some of that on how this whole multiverse thing was rolled out so kind of clumsily in phase 4. So that I don't know if you can blame this movie for that, but anytime he's on screen, man, you can't take your eyes off of him. He's really good. There is everyone's made everyone knows that MODOK's in the film. I'm not sure if I like that CGI that they did of MODOK. I'm not gonna, again, I don't want to get into spoilery territory, but it's a little weird. It's very strange. There's a lot of strangeness going on in this film, and I think one of the reasons that we're also seeing the review bombing, or that the critics don't like it, is, the first 2 Ant-Man films were very grounded in reality. So, I mean, they both took place in San Francisco. They're both basically heist films, this movie is, this is a fantasy film. This is a hardcore fantasy film. And you're basically spending it's a 2 hour and 5 minute film. And you're probably spending an hour and 40 of it basically in an animated environment, in the CGI 3D environment. And they used a lot of the volume stages, a lot of stuff to shoot this with. I think it all looks pretty good, except for the one CGI thing I mentioned earlier. There's 1 minute in the it's not a spoiler to say there's a big battle at the end because it's a Marvel film, but there are so many different kinds of quirky looking characters. I swear to God, at one point I thought, please tell me they're going to break into the Queen Flash Gordon song. And because I'm like, this is perfect. I mean, all I need here is the good Flash, because it dawned on me, this is a Flash Gordon movie. It's a Flash Gordon. It's outsider comes in and gets all these desperate people who normally wouldn't cooperate together to overthrow this evil dictator, basically. And sorry if you didn't get that from the trailer, you're not paying attention. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I had a good time with it. I think the movie had the perfect cast. I mean, I've already talked about Jonathan Majors. Everybody loves Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, and of course, Michelle. I would say Michael Douglas felt a little wasted at times, but other than that, I mean, again, we can't really go into huge spoilers, and we're not going to, but I enjoyed it with some reservations. Again, I thought it was way better than some of the stuff we've gotten in the last phase. So if this is the worst Marvel Phase 5 has to offer, we're in for a good show here.
Yeah, I know what you meant. I know what you mean about the whole CG on MODOK, but I have to say I actually liked it because, let's face it, MODOK is supposed to be a ridiculous looking character. That is what that character is supposed to be. You look at him and you just think to yourself, okay, this character just is wrong. And I thought that the way that they sort of did his CG for me really worked, because it didn't take itself quite so seriously. It seemed like the sort of absurd thing that you would get essentially in this universe that they've created, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think MODOK was done really well. I know a lot of people had some grievances on it, and I could tell during some scenes that MODOK didn't quite look 100% here and there, but also, like, we're also, they're in the quantum realm and everything's kind of, it almost has like a kind of a distortion to it down there.
Yeah.
So I kind of just accepted that everything's going to have kind of an odd look to it, a bit.
And that's kind of how I went with the two. Like, well, everything down here kind of gets a pass on how it looks, you know, because of exactly that reason, you know. So
Yeah. I agree with you that Michael Douglas felt a little bit wasted. I kind of felt like that for most of the characters, to be honest.
mm,
Um,
Well, especially Bill Murray. He was
yeah,
completely wasted in that film.
yeah, Krylar, I think he deserved to have a little bit more to him. Um, just given, you know, they got Bill Murray to be in one of these things to start with.
exactly.
But also, if you know, I'm not too familiar with Krylar, but my understanding is his character has a lot more to offer than just kind
Yeah.
of being there as, oh, he's the mayor of this place down here, I guess. um,
Yeah. Well, and the
I
other thing that was weird too, like Goldar says, like you got Bill Murray to be. Did you feel like they used his first take on everything? It's like this isn't even like Scrooged or Meatballs Bill Murray, or this is just like Bill Murray just got out of bed and said, "Okay, what do you want me to say?" You know, I mean, like I felt like there was about 4 or 5 more takes of funnier stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, you know how it is with Bill Murray these days. You know, you never really know if he's going to actually be in your movie until the day that he shows up. I
Yes.
sort of wondered if like he just sort of wandered in off the street and they said, "Hey, Bill, you want to be in this movie?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, why the hell not?"
Yeah. Why
So
not?
they just like, put him in his regular clothes and just sort of filmed him, and it was just one of those kind of things. It's like he's here. What the hell?
Yeah. Just,
mhm. um, I kind of and you Geek Boy, you touched on something about Cassie's personality in this that I think that they probably should have drove more with, in my opinion, given that during the 5 year blip, you know, she was still around, she's still aged, but Ant-Man was gone. So I kind of
yeah.
feel like their relationship should have been a little bit different, given Scott's absence in her life. And I think that could have offered an interesting dynamic had they played into that a little bit more with
Yeah.
it. I did like what they were trying to do with Scott's place in the world post Endgame at
Yeah.
the very
Yeah.
beginning.
That
I
was
feel like
great.
that's very much what his character would do, and I liked the dynamic that they were trying to say, like, hey, like, you know, this is where I'm at right now, but by the end of the movie, he was like, yeah, I think I should approach things a little bit differently, and I think that was great. I feel like there should have been an extra scene to kind of like help that a little
Yeah.
bit more to kind of like drive it home at the very
Yeah.
very end.
Yeah.
Um, but so one thing I would say, I actually was thinking about this the last couple days, and given the type of character Kang is, I thought of two different endings that would have made this film a little bit better.
Oh,
Um,
really? Can you
yeah,
say them without spoiling anything?
um, yeah, because I don't feel like anybody like this is the beginning of Phase 5, so we know that there's not going to be too many drastic changes to anything. Just like we saw, you know, when Phase 4 kicked off with WandaVision, like we knew there weren't going to be too many drastic things happening here. Although it did ultimately lead to that by the time we
Right.
got to the end of it. Um, but I think what they could have done with this, I think that they should have I think they should have had Ant-Man captured by Kang, and that was the end of the movie. So then it
Hmm.
gives the characters something to do, like a new arc for them to start, that they
Yeah.
could finish in the next film or the next time we see Ant-Man. Um, but yeah, I think he should have been captured, or they should have been captured, or they give us something a little bit more ominous, because the ending was interesting the way that they put it, because it did kind of feel a tad unsettling, just based on
Hmm.
like a couple of reactions that Scott had. If you notice, like the places that he went to at the very beginning were a little bit different
Hmm.
at the very end, and I guess that's kind of like
Yeah.
hinting at what we saw in Loki, where things were different when Loki got back after He Who Remains was killed. Um,
Yeah.
but I think it would have been interesting too to have some things like very very different, or things very very wrong. when he got back, and then they
Yeah.
end the film on that, and then it's like, wait, what the fuck? like
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
what's happening here? But yeah, that's
Yeah, because
that.
basically the weirdness gets. Oh, no, go ahead. You were gonna say.
No, go ahead.
Like I said, because basically, apart from just what you see, the weirdness is basically held back to the 2 post-credit scenes.
Yes. Yeah, they saved all of that. Boy, I can't really get into
I know we can't.
what they show, but the first one I was excited for because
Yeah.
it then gave confirmation that who we saw before was not who I thought we saw.
Mhm.
For sure. Like, He Who Remains is definitely He Who Remains.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the people that don't know, like, there's, Kang is just not, he's not just one person.
Right.
He's there's many of them, just like they told us in Loki. And that I won't get into it much further beyond that, but that was interesting. And then the second one was even more curious, but we will probably see more on that very soon.
I would say the one thing that really irked me is uh Michelle's Pfeiffer character does something that I hate when screenwriters do, is she holds back vital information that would have really could have helped him out a bunch in the first act until it's time to have a cool interlude, and I hate it when movies do that, just do that. But otherwise, like I say, it's good, solid 3-star film. I have my hopes up a little bit for phase 3. I do think that the movie's a little too weird for mainstream critics. That's why they may be off-putting it. Plus, what Mr. Narwhal said, they probably smell a little blood in the water. This is our brief but unspoilery take on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I'm sure we'll have more details coming out about it here in the next few weeks or so as more people see it and it doesn't get a spoilery. But until next time, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that button right down there. For Fanboys 918, I'm the Geek Boy, Mr. Narwhal and Goldar, signing off. Peace.